for agreeing to do the interview today about college applications and specifically at the essays. So I guess to begin, what are some common errors that IMSA students specifically make, such as cliches that people use all the time or stylistic errors?
Well, I'm not an expert in style, so I won't be talking about stylistic errors, but the most common, the most widely spread, I don't even know how to say it, the most common cliche essay would start like this. I am just so poor. I come from such a poor, awful high school. When I got to IMSA, I did not know anything. Everybody was so much better. I had to work so hard. And so therefore, please admit me because I'm such a hard-working person. So you should never, ever, first of all, say anything negative about yourself or say anything negative about your high schools. You should never pass any kind of a judgment onto anybody. So that would be probably the most typical essay that I see that students are feel like they have would like to submit. The other typical essay would be usually happens just so awful of me to say, but usually starts like this. As a Chinese American, I live in two worlds, and it's just so hard to juggle two worlds. And again, how many essays are like that, or it can be as a Korean American or as a Indian American or whatever. So just stay away from things that. But you see, it's kind of hard to navigate. But when in doubt, just come and check with us maybe. But those two probably would be the typical stereotypical essay that I've seen I don't know how many times from IMSA students.
Okay, and then so for the why specific school essay, what should you write and what should you not write for?
Well, here's a rule of thumb. If you can cross out your schools that you're writing for and you can substitute with any school that you're choosing, does the content change or not? So if the content, if it still reads fine, then clearly you're not writing for that school. So the rule of thumb usually is when you're answering a question, why Northwestern? So you need to answer it very genuinely. And the genuine things to high school students are size of the school. I'm coming from a very small high school. I'm so used to close student-teacher interaction. I'm looking forward to continue with that. You answer like that. You see, and if you can get any information about their about their undergraduate research, because that's, again, make connections to your current life as much as possible. So smaller high school, ability to do research, see how widely it's available for undergraduate students. Talk about diversity. So the more connections you make to something that you know for a fact worked for you, the more genuine the essay would sound. Why us? And again, the rule of thumb always is if you cross out of college and going to put some random, Lady of the Lake college or wherever, and if all of a sudden it reads the same, then clearly you did not answer the question.
Okay. And so when a lot of people write their essays, they would like to see what their parents think or what their counselors think. So when do you know when to stop editing an essay, or who should edit an essay?
That's a great question. And that's a question that I personally kind of struggle with, because I struggle with a student who brings an essay to me and says, okay, I already showed to 7 people and you're number 8, because then it becomes no longer your essay. So I think that usually the kind of the mathematical formula, if you want to call it like that I use for my students is clearly show to your parents, because nobody knows better than your parents. And then show to a peer you trust. This is so important. We have such a strong writing center tutors, writing center peer tutors. Show to somebody who knows how to write well, somebody that you're willing and eager to get feedback from, and then show to one more adult. But do not run around like a chicken without a head, showing to every single English teacher you ever had, every single social studies teacher you ever had, and every single CAC in this office. So don't do that, because there will be way too many fingers in the pie. So that's my advice.
So when someone else edits your essay, what should they do, or what shouldn't they do?
Well, first of all, nobody should ever be editing anybody's essay. You should be asking for feedback. So I hardly, if ever, edit my students' essays. So I would say, okay, there's no connection between this and this. There's no and, or the conclusion or the beginning is too flimsy. So make sure that nobody physically edits your essays, because that's a no-no in any kind of a college writing process. So get feedback in terms of whether or not you're coming across genuinely, sincerely, sophisticated writer. So do that.
In what terms were these essays very well written? Or do you have any tips to write as well as these?
Well, you see that again, so it's a style. So you have to, it has to, one of your questions is about what's the limit. Yeah, colleges always say 300, between 300 and 500 words. 300, they would like to see that, but they can go with 500. But really, truly, if you go over 500, it's no big deal. If your essay, when a reader reads your essay and it's reaches so fast and it's so fascinating, then colleges really don't care how long it is. And clearly don't write a novel, don't be Lev Tolstoy or Dostoevsky with, 72 books to your name. So it has to be, the reader cannot struggle to reading. So that's why when you give your essay to read to a peer or your parent or somebody else, if a reader all of a sudden says, okay, I didn't get here, no, there should be no pauses in reading, that means it's a very well written essay. So you have to read, it has to be read very fast, but in a very enjoyable fast kind of a mode. Now the other thing to remember is that the colleges have only 17 minutes, and I mean it literally 17 minutes to read the whole application, which includes your whole completed application with your essay, 2 teacher's recommendations, counselor recommendation, secondary school report from a counselor, secondary school report from a teacher, IMSA profile, school's profile, your grades in your test scores. 17 minutes to digest the whole entire package. So it's not 17 minutes per essay, it's 17 minutes for everything. So you have to come across quick, and you have to write so a counselor wants to read your essay. It's not like, okay, now let me read this essay. Okay, I didn't get this paragraph. Let me go over it again. They have no time for that whatsoever. So it has to be, so when you give to your peer, the reaction should be, this is great. This is written so well, I want to read it on. So that's the reaction you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Regarding length, how strict is the 500 word?
Well, like I said, usually they are, they never will stop reading. They will stop reading. So if you submit page after page after page, they will stop reading. But try to keep yourself between 300 and 500 words. If you go a little bit over, make sure that you give it to somebody to read and say, does it read too long? Because it's possible to be 700, but still the essay does not read too long. So use us as your barometers.
Okay. Regarding topics, everyone has a ton of places to draw inspiration for their essays, so how do you decide on writing a specific topic?
That's a very personal question. Usually, it's very difficult to write about sports, usually, because again, it's such a cliche topic, and here I play basketball, or I swim, or I do, but it is possible to write a beautiful essay about sports. Usually, it's a cliche to write about my trip abroad, my trip to France, my trip to wherever, but it's possible to write a very, very meaningful essay about your trip abroad. So write about something, like I said, we'll go back again to the same thing. Write about something that you genuinely care about, because moment that happens, then you will come across as a sincere writer, and therefore your essay should be sophisticated and yet interesting enough to be read.
Among extracurriculars and the additional information section on the Common Application, what should be included in those sections?
Well, first of all, make sure that you remember how Common Application is going to give you 10 only spots for extracurricular activities. So organize them in terms of most impressive to the least impressive. And here, be a little bit kind of politically correct. And so make sure that you emphasize things that are very unique to you, such as SIR. Anybody and everybody can be a club president. I get it. But it's also very special. But hardly anybody can say, I've done some SIR during my, high school years. So always start your extracurricular portion always with your SIR experiences. And after that, list then next experiences that are most meaningful to you. Usually longevity means most meaningful. So if you've been for 12 last years, all you've done is cello and nothing but cello, so then music should be the next activity. Any kind of a leadership activity. So the organize your activities portion from the most impressive to the least impressive, and there are only 10, so you have to choose 10. Common applications allow you to upload your resume. However, here's what you must keep in mind. Colleges are under no obligations to open and use your resume.
Well, another school that came to mind for early decision is Northwestern.
Yes, Northwestern always has.
Okay. And then returning to the early action and early decision, how much more competitive are early application programs versus regular decision? And do they confer any benefits?
Okay, so remember how colleges have either early decision or early action single choice. So that's the early due date is there to serve two purposes. Number one, identify students who are dying for that school. Number two, identify the most highly achieving students, because those students will set a benchmark for regular students. So in general, early pool at either early decision school or early action school or early action single choice school is smaller, but those are the best students that will apply to that college. So it is not in the best interest of a college to admit somebody who is kind of a mediocre because they're trying to set the bar. Now, the difference between early action and early decision schools is that clearly early decision schools will yield, which means they will attend, whereas early action school students will have many other options. When you apply early action to early action school, let's use the University of Chicago as an example. University of Chicago assumes that you are one of their, if not the number one choice, because you're applying early. So it is considered to be unethical to complete your application to University of Chicago under early action due date and to apply early decision to a school next door called Northwestern University, because you cannot love two people simultaneously with the same love and passion and adoration. So you will be deceiving University of Chicago by submitting your application to them and by submitting early decision application to Northwestern. There is no penalty, fortunately or unfortunately, you will never go to jail, but in the college admissions world, considered to be unethical. If you want to log on into there's only one school that makes that statement on their website, which I applaud that school very much so. So if you log on into Georgetown University website, under their admissions, you will see that statement, and the statement says, by completing, if you're applying to us under early action due date, please do not submit your application anywhere else for early decision consideration, because we consider you to be the students who are dying for us. So, I mean, like I said, we cannot enforce that rule or law, but it's just considered to be unethical. So the second part of your question, so what are your chances of being admitted? So for early, now here for our early schools, it's the same kind of the same math applies to begin with. Very few students, but high achieving students. You have to keep that in mind. Now after that, students for early decision schools, your chances are being admitted mathematically are higher, because if you're only talking about 4,000 students applying early decision versus 14,000 students applying early decisions, clearly your chance of being chosen out of 4,000 is higher mathematically. But then remember, content-wise is going to be difficult, because those are the best students who are applying. So to be admitted to early decision school mathematically is more possible. Reality-wise, it's a little bit more difficult. However, not so much for IMSA students, just because so few of our students apply early decision. And colleges know that and take a notice of that. Early action single choice, this kind of a math formula doesn't necessarily apply. So they will have, let's say, 4,000 applications, let's say University of Chicago for early action for early action school. They might admit you, they also might defer you for a regular pool, whereas early decision schools usually just either deny you or admit you. So, your chances probably are the same, whether or not you'll be applying regular or early. What we always advise for IMSA students, though, however, that you should show your interest early. So if you have University of Chicago on your list, and if it doesn't conflict with any early decision school or early action single choice, yes, do apply, because it indicates to University of Chicago that, number one, you're not applying to any early action single choice schools, which is very important for University of Chicago, to know that you are their number one, not Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, or Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, yes, so none of those. And then University of Chicago will have great difficulties not to admit an IMSA student who is high achieving IMSA student and very wonderful and wrote wonderful essays early. I mean, they just would have great difficulties doing that because they haven't admitted them.
Returning to courses at IMSA, how do schools, I guess, judge the difficulties or rigor of your curriculum, because we don't have honors or APs?
Right. Well, colleges do not. So every single for every single student, we send an IMSA profile. This is on the IMSA website, so you can log on. You will see 2013 profile, where we list every single course we offer and we talk about graduation requirements. So colleges will never ever open your transcript and say, well, now, she only took, or he only took physical, light, and sound. He or she never took modern physics, so he or she must be dumb. They never do that because we never tell them, what the content of the courses is, because according to IMSA curriculum and according to everything that we present, to the world, is every single course is taught with the similar rigor and expectations. What colleges do, however, and this is where everybody has to be very, very, aware of, they do look at how many classes you took. So when we write about a student who goes above and beyond IMSA graduation requirement and completes extra courses, then we write about that because that's pretty spectacular. So during your junior year, colleges are very used to seeing 2 math and 4 science courses. Should you have something else on your transcript, well, colleges will note that. Colleges also look at your senior year schedule. So if they'll see 5 classes, well, yeah, and then they'll see another student at IMSA with 7 academic courses. So be aware of your course load, because that's something that colleges do pay attention to. And most importantly, colleges look at your grades clearly. Colleges pay attention to such a little things as these 2 foreign languages. It appeals to colleges tremendously when an IMSA student will graduate with all needed math and science courses and 2 foreign languages. Colleges pay attention to your music. And so if you were able to stay with orchestra or band all 3 years, again, we write about that in our regs because it's not common and we don't have too many students doing that. So colleges pay attention to those things. But in terms of differentiating between, let's say organic chemistry versus advanced chemistry versus biochemistry, colleges will not do that. They will just see how many courses you took. So they'll look at, your course load. Okay.
What about independent study?
Independent study is, in a way, meaningless to colleges because it provides them with very little information. There's no grade. There's also no, when the independent study is posted on your transcript, it's going to say, independent study in biology. Well, colleges have no clue what the heck you did. Or it's going to say, independent study in chemistry. Well, so what are you doing in that chemistry or biology? So, you can have independent study or not have independent study. You're not going to impress anybody with that whatsoever.
Would it benefit anyone to write about the independent study in the additional information section?
Well, then colleges will be curious, then why are you taking us through a biology course? So you see, it's a double-edged sword. You're going to say, I am completing this independent study in chemistry, then the college is going to look and say, well, you never took advanced chemistry or organic chemistry to begin with, so what are you doing in completing this advanced study in chemistry? If, however, you're a student who says, the reason why I'm completing advanced study in chemistry is because I've passed out of every single chemistry IMSA has to offer. I'm so good that I tested out of all chemistry, or I'm above and beyond any kind of chemistry. So therefore, I'm completing this chemistry. Then it will make sense. But if you're going to write and say, I'm completing an independent study in history, and college's reaction will be like, are there like a deficiency of coursework here? Why are you doing that? See what I mean? Mm-hmm. So don't explain too much either. So you can kind of put yourself in a bind.
Any last thoughts or advice?
No, I don't have. Well, the only advice. Well, I always have advice. So the advice is, first of all, clearly everybody's going to go to college. So clearly there's no question about that. What you also need to approach this whole process. This is, like I said, and I say this over and over again. This is not like getting married and moving to Russia. Nobody's going to force you to do something you don't want to do. You're not gonna like at your college, first semester you're gonna discover, this isn't for me. Transfer. This is not a fatal mistake you're gonna make.